Hello, everyone. So glad that everyone is here. Good to see so many people on the screen that are participating. Dear attendees, welcome. My name is Dalinda Perez Alvarez, and I am a part of the British Chilean Chamber of Commerce. The company I work for is part of the British Chilean Chamber of Commerce, and I am part of the education committee as well within the chamber. And I would love to welcome you to the 4th Conference on Bilingual Education 2023. The 4th Conference on Bilingual Education is an initiative run by a group of national and international institutions in Chile dedicated to bring together leading academics, researchers, school administrators, and teachers to exchange and share their experiences and results on all aspects of bilingual education in Latin American and other contexts. Today, we have speakers and attendees from many parts of Chile, Latin America, and other parts of the world. I hope you enjoyed this effort made by 4 of the members: Cambridge University Press, the University of Edinburgh, Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso, Cognita Chile, and the special participation of the Chilean Neuro Learning Association. Thank you, everyone. And now I present Lilian Turri, Country Manager of Cambridge University Press, Chile, who will provide more details of this event.
Thank you, Dalinda. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests and fellow educators. Welcome to the 4th Bilingual Conference on Bilingual Education. It's a privilege to stand before you today and kick off this gathering of passionate individuals committed to shaping the future of bilingual education. In all its facets, bilingual education is a powerful catalyst for personal growth, cultural enrichment, and social harmony. In a globalizing world where borders seem to blur and cultures intermingle, the importance of bilingualism cannot be overstated. It opens doors to cross-cultural understanding, fosters empathy, and enhances cognitive abilities. It equips students with a unique skill set, preparing them to thrive in an increasingly interconnected global community. As we embark on this conference, I want to emphasize the critical role of special needs education within the broader framework of bilingualism. Our commitment to inclusivity is at the heart of effective education. Special needs education, tailored to individual requirements, not only embraces diversity, but also ensures that no one is left behind on the path to linguistic and educational excellence. Regardless of their abilities or challenges, every student deserves access to a bilingual education. Our mission here is not only to discuss best practices, share research findings, and exchange innovative ideas, but also to reaffirm our collective dedication to ensuring that bilingual education is truly inclusive. I encourage you to engage in open and constructive dialogue to challenge existing paradigms and to collaborate on solutions that will empower our students to reach their full potential. I leave now you with Pilar Zárate, who will introduce our first speaker. Pilar Zárate is a senior academic consultant for Cambridge in Chile. Thank you, Pilar.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. My name is Pilar Zárate. I'm an English teacher and academic consultant for Cambridge University Press and Assessment in Chile. Well, today we are really glad to host all of you and also to introduce the wonderful speakers we have invited to this conference. So the first talk is about life competencies. It's a very interesting talk, and we have invited an educational specialist to talk about this important framework of the Cambridge Life Competencies. Her name is Claire Ross, who has been working in English language teaching since 2003, and she also works with Cambridge University Press and Assessment, helping teachers in universities and schools across the world. She also delivers the trainer course and the British, and she also teaches at the British Council and has supported new and experienced teacher trainers in many countries, including online training and mentoring. Claire has designed and built and tutored several online courses for the British Council and Future Learn. And she also writes classroom material and courses for teachers and trainers. So let's welcome Claire Ross. And Claire, welcome to the 4th Conference on Bilingual Education.
Thank you so much, Pilar, and a very good afternoon to everyone joining. I'm delighted to be part of this event. I hope that it's useful for you, and I hope that you will take part and you'll be able to take something away from today. So please have your chat open because there'll be opportunities to interact. I'll be asking you some questions. Please don't be shy and get ready to participate. All right. So let's get started. We're talking about life competencies today. So what's on the menu? Well, first of all, let's make sure we all understand the same thing about life competencies. We're going to look at how we can develop these and teach language at the same time. That's important. And also how we can integrate this teaching of life competencies through some fun activities that are very learner-centered and that you can put into different types of lessons. All right, so it's your first chance to take part now. I'm going to put a question on the screen and make sure I can see the chat as well. So tell me, what skills do you think that young people need as they're going into the world in the 21st century? So please don't be shy, put them in the chat. There we go. Benedita has started us off. Thank you very much, Benedita. We've got critical thinking, autonomy, teamwork. Great. Teamwork's coming up several times. What else do our learners need? Thinking about what they need now if they're at school, if they're going into high school, after high school, going into the world of work. Thank you, Jorge. So self-confidence. Caitlin has mentioned technical skills. All right, great. Thank you so much. And I'm glad you're taking part already. So I want to think about this in two ways. So first of all, thinking about the skills that learners need for study. So for this, I've taken this from Cambridge University. It's a good place to start. And this is the skills that they list as the ones that really mark out the successful learners. And they group these into 4 sets of skills. So I wonder if they're the same as the ones that you thought of. Are they? So intellectual thinking skills, communication skills, organizational skills, and interpersonal, so dealing with other people. Did you have similar ideas, I wonder? So those are the academic side. Now, what about employers moving into the world of work? Well, here's some research from the US. And again, as I bring these up, I'd like you to compare your ideas and see if you have the same. I think certainly some things came up in the chat already. Problem solving is definitely in there, and IT I can see in there as well. And certainly number 1 that many of you said, working in a team structure. I wonder if you think this would be the same for your country? Do you think that employers want the same skills from their employees, from our students now as they're moving into the world of work after they finish school? So as you look at these skills, I think it's quite clear that they're not particularly related to language. They cut across the curriculum and they could come into different types of lessons. And that's really key to what we're talking about today. All right, so we're already answering this question. We're talking about what life competencies are. And I want to refer to a really useful tool that Cambridge has come up with. Some of you may be familiar with it, let me know in the chat, but the Cambridge Framework for Life Competencies, which was created by a dedicated research team at Cambridge, and it was really in response to educators like yourselves who wanted to really understand how life skills can be integrated into a curriculum, into English language programs. And that's great. They did all the work for us. So they did a lot of research and they came up with 6 key life competencies. So we can now compare it to your ideas, to the ones from the academic side and the world of work. So let's see what these 6 are, because this is going to form also the framework of what we're talking about today. So I'm going to bring up each one on the screen with some key points that go with it. And I would like you to see if you can guess what each competency is. Are you ready? Here's the first one. So I've helped you out a bit. I've given you the first couple of letters. So what is this life skill? It describes social skills. It describes the ability to work well with others. It's about working together in groups and working towards successful group outcomes. All right, I can see some people have got it already. There you go. The first one, collaboration. Yes. Okay. What about the next one? This is about taking control of learning, enjoying to learn, having a positive attitude towards learning. What's the key missing word here? There we go. Absolutely. Thank you, Daniela. So this one is learning to learn. So all about learner autonomy and being an independent learner as well. All right, next one. So this describes thinking skills. It's about evaluating ideas, evaluating arguments. What could this be? There we go. Fantastic. So critical thinking is next. Very important in today's world, I think. The next one is another kind of thinking. Oh, and I've already revealed it. There you go. So this one is about being imaginative, looking for new ways to do things. And this one is about creativity. Okay. The next one, it's another C. What do you think this one could be? We've already had collaboration. So this is about things like taking part in meetings, about developing presentation skills, interacting and engaging with others. So what kinds of life skills are these? We've gone a bit quiet on this one. I'm sure you can guess. And a very, very big part of language teaching. So this one is, that's it, Patricio. So communication skills. All right. And the next one here. This is all about helping children and young people to understand where they are in their own culture, how they are related to other cultures and social groups. It's about cultural sensitivity. What does this describe, if you like? There we go. And this one, social responsibilities. Okay, so we have been through all 6 now are described in the Cambridge Life Competencies Framework. Here they are. And at the end, I will be giving you links to the framework if you want to go and read about it in more detail. But just to very briefly describe, it doesn't just tell you these 6 skills, it breaks each one down into core areas. So for example, learning to learn, we can look at that in more detail in these 3 strands. So developing skills and strategies for learning, taking control of your own learning, and then reflecting on and evaluating learning. And it doesn't stop there. So it looks at each core area and then breaks that down into components as well. So you can see this has looked at reflection and evaluation and has broken this down into more concrete things. And then even greater breakdown, it gives example can-do statements for each of the components as well. And you can look at these life competencies for whatever level you're teaching, from pre-primary all the way up to higher education and adult learning. All right, so it's a very detailed tool, but don't worry, you don't have to do it all. So we're going to look at what we can do very practically and what you are probably already doing in your classroom to help your students to develop these life competencies. So our next key question, how can we develop life competencies and language at the same time? And for this, I want to have a look at a page of a course book. It could be any course book. Maybe it's a book you're using, it doesn't matter, but I want to find out if we have any opportunities already there in our books. Okay, so I'm going to show you some parts of this page in a moment. I want you to look at them and just think, bearing in mind those 6 life competencies we've just talked through, where is there an opportunity to develop one of these life competencies or more than one? Okay, so I'm going to show 4 activities and I'll list the life competencies as well. You can see them on the right, and just have a look at these 4 activities. Are there any opportunities on this page of the course book to develop life competencies? If you spot any, you can put them in the chat. If you like, you can write the number of the activity. I've put them 1 to 4, or you can just think quietly. But I hope we can identify at least one life competency we can see on this page. Okay, so we've got, haven't we, a lesson about recycling. We've got a listening, we have a discussion, and then there is some project work as well. So what do you think? What life skills are learners developing here? Well, absolutely. There we go. We've got some things coming into the chat. Thank you, Mabel and Mara, already. I think you could argue we've got almost all of them that we could possibly develop in this lesson. So we're asking learners to think in the project, for example, creatively about what they can do with old things at home. So we're asking them to think creatively to solve this problem. We're asking them to think critically, for example, number 3, about the listening text, to evaluate the listening that they hear. Do they like these ideas? We're asking them to communicate through the speaking and listening activities. The project work involves collaboration because they work as a group. And of course, the whole topic here is all about social responsibilities, isn't it? And reducing waste. So the reason I've done this, and this was a great example, but I think you could pick a lot of different pages from course books and find opportunities in there to develop these life competencies. So I just want to reassure you and other teachers that you're working with that probably you're already doing this. And if you're having conversations about these things and these things are happening in your classroom, you're already helping your learners to develop these skills. So it's already there in your course book. Let's look at how we can integrate it into our lessons. So I've introduced the framework, and I think that's a good place to start. So I think the first thing to do is to familiarize yourself with that framework, just so you're comfortable and confident with what's meant by these terms: collaboration, social responsibility. And then really think about your learners. So whatever age they are, what's important to them right now, and which skills do you think you should be focusing on at the moment? And then whether you're using a course book or not, other materials, is to do what we've just done now. Look in the book, look at your materials and see what you've got already. So what opportunities do you already have to develop these skills? And then you might decide to extend them, to supplement them, and that's what we're going to look at in a moment. And certainly if you are teaching a lesson like the one we looked at and you choose to make more of a thing of, for example, social responsibility, is to highlight that with your learners so they know what they're learning and help them to reflect on these skills and also perhaps self-assess the skills as well. Okay, so the next part of our talk is going to look at 6 activities very quickly, 1 for each of the life skills in the framework. And I've taken the activities from a set of free resources for teachers. They're the life competencies cards for young learners and for teenagers. And at the end of the talk, again, I'll be giving you links to download and use these cards if you like. So it's just a taster of some activities you could use in your classroom to really focus on life competencies. All right, so let's start with our first one. So we're going to look at a creative thinking activity. And it's time to get involved again. I'm going to show you a picture from a course book, and I want you to get your learners thinking creatively about this picture. So what questions would you ask your learners to get them talking? And I'm interested now in the most interesting questions that you could ask them. So please put them in the chat. What would you ask your learners? You're showing it on the board or you're holding up the course book. And what would you ask them? What would you like to know about this picture? It's quite interesting, isn't it? Thank you, Mabel. So what do you think is really happening here? Great question. What else? Other questions? Who are they, Vanessa? Yeah, good question. I wonder who they are. I wonder where they are. Do they know each other? Other questions? That's a good one. Why are they so happy? Why are they laughing? Daniela has a great one. What was happening before this photo was taken? All right, and another great one from Mabel there. What's happening? Why is he sitting on the floor? Where are his shoes? There we go. And lots about why he's smiling or laughing. Really nice. Okay. Caitlin, I'm going to come back to yours. That's a fantastic question. All right. I think often when we show a picture in class, we tend to start with the same kinds of questions, don't we? So look at the picture. What can you see? Maybe where are they? Or maybe we get students calling out words that they know when we show the picture. And that's great. And I think that is a great start. But it is a little bit limiting, perhaps, and we want to encourage a bit more creativity in this lesson. So I really like your ideas, and I would add those to my list. Here are some other more interesting questions I think we can ask to get learners thinking creatively. So someone else has the same idea as me, like what just happened, and look outside the picture as well. And I want to go back to Caitlin's point earlier, which I can't find now, but she said, what questions could you ask about this picture? So why not get your learners thinking about interesting questions that they could ask each other, I think. So simple activity, but really get students thinking creatively. And if you've got younger learners, if you're working with the primary book, that works too, doesn't it? Here's another picture that I've taken from a different course book, and why not get them thinking about what the children are thinking? And we can fill in some thought bubbles together, for example, for that one. All right, so that's our first activity. And as I said, these are taken from the life competencies cards, and you can see the activity here, very simple, very short instructions. And although this is from the teenagers set of cards, I think that would work for younger learners as well. I think it would work for older learners. You can see here, they're really focusing on sensory things in that picture. So I think that's a great question. What can you hear? What can you smell in that picture? All right, so that's our first activity, asking interesting questions. Let's move to number 2. So number 2 is related to communication. Now, this is a super straightforward thing to integrate into your lessons if you're teaching language. Let's make it really interesting. So here's another activity, and it's something that you could do in any lesson where you want learners to practice some new language. For example, perhaps you've got a phrase or a word that you are getting them to listen, repeat. You're doing some drilling. Perhaps you are getting them ready for a role play, for example. It works really well with that. And you're encouraging them here to say things like they're as if they're talking to different people. So let's use this as an example. We've got a function here, and you want to open the window. How would you say it differently if you were talking to one of these people? So it's difficult for us to do this together, but I'm sure you can imagine how you might say it if you're speaking to, for example, your best friend. You don't need to be so polite. Just can you open the window, or open the window? But if you're speaking to your grandparents, you might be a little more polite. Is it okay if I open the window? If you're speaking to someone you don't like, how would that sound differently? So our relationship with the people we're talking to affects the language we use, and also it affects our tone of voice, doesn't it? It affects our facial expressions. It affects our body language as well. So this is a great opportunity to open up this conversation about the ways that we communicate. So suddenly this is a lot more than drilling. It's a lot more than a role play, isn't it? And I'm just showing this as an example from really any course book where you have a role play, you have some functional language. I've chosen one here with requests, and then things you could talk about afterwards. So different ways of communicating with words or with body language. All right, here's another one, and I want you to try, wherever you are now, I want you to try this at home. It doesn't matter if your family is around. Don't be embarrassed. No one can hear you here. But I'm going to give you just one word, and I want you to say it in different ways, as if you're tired, as if you're happy, as if you're excited. Okay? Why not? Try it. Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? Are you okay? All right. So that's a fun one to do. Kids love this. And why not use this as a pair work activity and get them to guess the emotion? It's all part of talking about feelings. It's all part of socio-emotional learning. And it doesn't really matter here the word or the phrase that we're using. We're looking at different ways that we communicate our feelings, whatever the language. And of course, socio-emotional learning comes into all levels of learning and course books. I've taken here from primary, you can see, and from a secondary level course book as well, also talking about feelings and emotions. So that fits really, really well into different levels. Okay, I wonder what you think about that one. Let me know in the chat. And this one is taken from the Young Learners set. But again, I think this could work well with teenagers, don't you? I think this could work well with adult learners as well. And there's actually two different activities there. Okay, we're moving on to number 3. And this one, I'm going to ask you to do it. So this is about critical thinking, and I'm going to give you an activity. Get your brains going. So I'm going to show you a set of vocabulary. I've taken it randomly from a course book. I'd like you to look at these words and decide which one do you think is the odd one out. So there's no right or wrong answer here. But the key is you need to justify your answer. Okay, so I can see you're thinking already, but I'd like you to put it in the chat and tell me why. So if you've chosen high heels like Mabel, why high heels? Why is that one different? All right, so I'd like you to think really, really carefully here. So we're trying to make relationships between different words. We're trying to think critically. We're looking at patterns. So tell me, I'm very interested in your justifications. So someone has said high heels. So, okay, if that's your choice, what's your justification? Do you agree? Have you got a different one? All right, and there we go. We've got one justification there now. So high heels, you need them for walking, but you don't actually wear them as the rest of the clothes. Okay, thank you, Mabel. I think we'll accept that justification. They are a different category, says Fernanda. Tell us more about that. I'm interested in what you mean by a different category. Nice justification. Who else? Who chose another word as the odd one out? Because remember, there's no right or wrong answer here. You could argue that any of these words are different. I could say sweater, for example, because it doesn't end in S. So you can look at the morphology of the word. Any other ideas? Thank you, Caitlin. There we go. Aha, so the dress, because it doesn't cover just one part of the body. Perfect. Yeah, great justification. Now I can see you're warming up. Who else has an idea? Can you think of one for gloves, for example? How is gloves different from them? All right, I'm sure the longer I gave you for this, the longer and the more you would be able to think about and to make those relationships and those links. And if you try this with learners, I promise you they will surprise you and they will come up with things that you haven't thought of before. Did you notice that high heels is the only one that's 2 words, for example? There you go. I hadn't until doing this with some children who told me that one. Another way you can do this is by asking students to put the words into different groups. So that's another way to make patterns, find relationships, and think critically about the words. And we've done it here with clothes words, but you could do it with any set of vocabulary, really. And I've taken these words and given them to you, but why not get students to give you the words? So look at the topic that you taught last lesson, perhaps. Get them to brainstorm some words. They have their own set of vocabulary, and then say, okay, so look at your set again, and I want you to choose the odd one out. And then the fun part comes when they're trying to convince each other and they're thinking really, really creatively. There we go. Okay, Catherine. Okay, yes, all right. That's a good point. So I can see all the messages in the chat. Can you please, everyone, make sure you are replying to everyone in the chat, because otherwise only I can see them. And it's good if we all share our ideas together. So you should see a blue box in the chat. If you click on that and make sure you've highlighted everyone, then you should be able to see other people's posts as well. All right, thank you. Good reminder there. So everyone's doing that again. Right, thank you. Francisca, you should be able to see, because Francisca has sent that to everyone. All right, so hopefully for the time remaining, you will be able to see each other's comments. So odd one out, and again, I've taken this from the activity cards, and this one was for teenagers, but can it work with primary students? Yes, it can. Can it work with older students? Absolutely. All right, let's move to activity number 4 now. So this one is looking at collaboration skills. Again, it's quite straightforward, I think, to integrate these into language lessons. We're teaching language and we're teaching communication. How do we communicate? By working together. But I think we can help our learners to really develop these working together skills. It's not something that we're born with, it's something that we learn, isn't it? That we learn through our interactions with other people, and that we can really help our learners, especially starting at the younger ages as they move up through their school lives. All right, so here is the activity, and again, it's linked to speaking and role plays. So I've taken one example of a role play, which is giving directions, and we have A and B, and A needs to give directions to B. For example, they're coming to their house for a party, but there's a terrible connection, so B can't hear A properly, but they have to work out a way to communicate and get the message across. So we've got some useful language here for A. So we've got A on the phone with a terrible connection saying, yep, okay, so my house is street, and you need to take the first road on the, did you get that? And B is saying, did you say the first road on the left or on the right? And then A has to repeat themselves, and B is paraphrasing what they think they've heard. So they're trying to overcome this communication difficulty, which happens to us all, doesn't it? It's not something we need to invent. Happens a lot in life. Internet connection, a bad line, for example, on a Zoom call, if we're losing the connection. So here's a way we can help our students develop these skills through the language that they're learning in class. And I've chosen this to use with directions, but it could be another set of language. It doesn't matter. It could be any role play at all. All you need is just that aspect of being on the phone and having the communication difficulty. And you'll notice here, I am talking about communication a lot, but this is a collaboration activity. And I think it's important just to say that as we are developing these skills and we're developing language at the same time, it's very difficult to isolate and teach these skills on their own, right? Just as it's difficult to isolate a language skill and say, I'm only focusing on listening in this lesson. So it's very natural, I think, for us to integrate and notice and develop different skills at the same time in our lessons, whether that's language skills or whether it's life skills as well. So here's the activity, and I've taken this from the teenage set of cards, and this I have adapted this one a bit to make it more fun, but it's all about rephrasing and learning how to rephrase what someone else says. So it's a really, really important part of working and communicating together, isn't it? All right, so I'm going to get you involved again in this one. So please make sure you are replying to everyone in the chat so we can all see. And this one is all about social responsibility. So I'm going to show you some situations on the screen. I want you to think about what you would do in each one. You can share if you feel comfortable, or you can keep it to yourself. So have a look at these situations. What would you do? And you can choose, if you like, from these choices, A to D. D is interesting. If you want to choose D, maybe you're happy to share what else you would do. All right, so just for a moment and imagine how this would be in the classroom, a group discussion perhaps, or pair work, getting students to think on their own first before they share with the rest of the group. So how about you? What would you do in these situations? So you can type, there we go. Thank you, Mabel. You can type the number with the letter that you would do, or you can type, if it's D, something else. Thank you, Paulina. So having the music on, not a problem for you. All right, but for Daniela would complain. Okay, all right, interesting. So Benedita's put them all. Thank you very much. So number 4, you would complain about the hot meal. Okay. And more people now are saying, actually, the loud music is a problem. All right, what about I'm very interested in number 2 because I am British and this would be a big problem for me culturally if somebody stands in front of me in a queue, because in Britain we love queuing so much, we can't stand it if people push in front. How about you? All right, and now we're starting to move into an interesting discussion, isn't it? Because we're starting to see, do we agree? Do we think the same things about these social rules? And is it the same in other countries? And if you're teaching younger learners, they might not know this yet, but let's think about it. So if in our group we have different opinions, then surely in other countries there are different opinions about these things as well, isn't it? So it's a great awareness raiser about interacting and learning, exactly, Vanessa, about different countries and different cultures within those countries as well. All right, and somebody's there saying, I would scream. Somebody stands on my foot. All right, and I took this, and again, I just want to share this with you just very quickly because I took this from a course book, which I think is a really nice activity. And it was looking at which countries complain the most. So they didn't look at all the countries in the world, but they did look at 30 different ones. And they looked at the top 10 and the bottom 10 of the countries that like to complain the most. I wonder if you have any ideas about which countries you would expect to find in the top 10 and which ones you'd expect to find in the bottom 10, and where would Chile be in that? Would you be in the top 10 or the bottom 10 or somewhere in the middle, do you think? And if you're joining today from a different country, would your country be in the top 10, the bottom 10, somewhere in the middle? Right, really interesting. Right, I've got some interesting comments coming through. Thank you everyone for sharing with everyone this time. Right, well, I'm going to show you. And remember, it's not all the countries in the world, so they just looked at 30 countries. So if your country isn't on there, doesn't mean it wasn't in the top 10 or bottom 10 overall. There you go. Anything surprising? I thought this was very surprising, actually. I don't think British people complain that much, do we? But then somebody said, yes, we complain about the weather. And I can't see Chile on there. I can see Argentina and Brazil are in the top 10. Interesting. Does that surprise you? The US is up there as well. And the bottom 10 is anything there that is different from how you saw it. Yeah, not Chile. I don't know. Maybe it's not in these 30 countries. Who knows? See how this conversation is now getting quite interesting. All right. And this one is all about considering a situation and how it might be different in a different culture, in a different country, and getting our students thinking about their place in the world. All right, hope you liked that one. We're going to our last activity now, which is the competency learning to learn. And I'm going to use this to help you to reflect on the activities and ideas that I've talked about in this first session. Okay, so it's a classroom activity, but let's use it to help you reflect now. So I want you to think about one idea, one strategy, one activity maybe that you would put in each of these 3 places. So perhaps there's something from today that you would like to use, but maybe a little bit later on. So you're not going to use it straight away. So maybe one idea is going in your fridge. What's going in your fridge from this afternoon? I'd like you to put something in your suitcase. So this, you're going to take it with you and you're going to use this probably quite soon. So do you have anything from today that's going with you in your suitcase? And then the last one, I think this is important too. So something that you've listened to and thought, actually, no, we're going to leave that. That's going to go in my bin. No, thank you very much. And that's important too, to think critically. So how about you? What's going in your fridge from today? What's going in your suitcase? And what's going in your bin from today? Lovely one. And why not try this with your learners? That's from the teenage set of activity cards. I think it's a really nice one to do to review learning at the end of a day, at the end of a unit, perhaps. Okay, so we're closing now in this first session, and just a quick summary of, I think, some key takeaways as we seem to be talking about things in the fridge. You're already teaching more than just English. We looked at all the opportunities that are there in the course book, and I think you've seen from the description of life skills and the activities we've looked at, you're already doing this. What can we do to do this more mindfully? We can think about the life competencies that our learners need the most. So don't try to do everything all at once, but perhaps start with your course book. See where there's an opportunity and develop life competencies there. And if you like the activities we did, why not pick an activity to develop those competencies? And as you teach them, highlight the skills so your learners are aware of what they're learning. And we mentioned as well that the skills are not developed in isolation, they naturally go together, and I think they naturally go with language teaching and with different subjects too. And then finally is helping learners to reflect and again thinking about what they're learning. So here are the cards, and links are coming up. I don't know if someone can drop these into the chat as well, but here are the links to the cards and to the framework that we mentioned at the beginning. So here we are at the end. Thank you very much. And yes, ready for some questions if we still have.
Thank you, Claire. Yeah, we're ready for some questions. Thank you very much.
I'm just looking through the chat as well about what people are putting in their suitcases from today, what's going in the fridge. All right, don't be shy, everyone. Yeah, which activity did you like? Which one would you have questions about, I wonder? And yeah, I can't see any questions, Pilar. Don't be shy, everyone. Pauline is saying all of them. That's great.
Well, actually, I was typing my question, but I think I'd like to ask it directly. I was wondering how teachers from other subjects at school can help us promote and develop life competencies. I think that also teachers that teach other subjects can help us, integrate these skills.
I really think so too, Pilar. And I think that is because I think that all teachers are language teachers, whether that is the subject that they're teaching or not, whether they're teaching maths or science. When you are teaching that, you're helping children and teenagers to develop the language that they need to talk about it. So whether that is their native language or it's a foreign language. And I think as we've seen today, whenever we have this interaction and communication, it's a great opportunity to develop some life skills. So it could be that it comes into a topic in the course book that is related to our place in the world. It could be related to other cultures. It could be related to the responsibilities we have about our changing world, about the environment, for example. I think in any subject, if we have some project work, there's a great opportunity for collaborative work, for some work on creativity.
Exactly.
Right? It fits really
Right.
into, I think, any subject at all.
Teachers can cooperate and collaborate, right?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, true. Jose is asking about special needs. What about students who need special attention? Can this framework be adopted easily?
I think so, Jose. And, I've just given you a very brief outline and just really the names of the skills today. But I think, like with anything when we're teaching, we're thinking about our learners first, and what they need from us in order to make sure everyone is included and make sure that we're reaching all of those learners. And in fact, some of these skills as we're teaching them are going to help us to do that. So when you're looking at collaboration skills, for example, part of that is helping learners to work together effectively and to help everyone to contribute when you're working in a group, for example. So you might do some activities about helping students choose roles within groups, about giving learners responsibility to make sure that everyone is involved in their group work so that everyone does what they are best at in the group and people contribute in different ways in a group, for example. So I think, yes, definitely, Jose, it can be adopted very easily and it's very, very flexible for use. We've already talked about with different subjects, different ages, different levels, and I think when we're thinking about individual needs as well. Oh, here's some good. Oh, there's another one from you, Pilar. I wasn't sure about the question from Paulina, my trainer course. I'm not sure what you mean there, Pilar, Paulina. But I will answer that question, Pilar. The easiest to integrate into the classroom. I think communication in a language classroom, really, because that's why we're teaching language. I just think we do it a little bit more mindfully and we really make sure that every time we're teaching new words and new structures, whether it's grammar and we're helping learners to say it, is that we're remembering that this is the purpose of language teaching is communication. So that one really springs to mind. I don't think we need to think too hard about integrating that. And like I said at the beginning, I think we're doing that anyway as teachers, and we are already teaching these skills anyway. It's just doing it with a bit more purpose, I think, or a bit more realization about what we're doing.
Here's another question from Jose.
Yes, Jose. So as if you use that bottom link there, you will see the same skills being developed at different levels from preschool right up to adults. So from the very, very beginning, collaboration skills, children learning to listen to each other, learning to speak clearly, learning to share, the very, very basics, right up to negotiation skills that we need in the workplace. It's actually quite interesting to see this progression of skills, and I think it's a very helpful thing because you can see what's needed at different stages in education.
Let's see if we can get another question.
Let's see.
Yeah, let's see. Oh, there's a
Great.
link.
Thank you, Isabel. Yeah,
Isabel?
I should tell you, I should tell you as well, I've shown you one activity for each competency, but when you open that and you download, it's a PDF. I think there must be, I don't know, 6, 7, or 8 for each competency. So if you didn't like the ones you saw today, have a look through the others and have a look through the different ages as well, because there are ones in the young learners that I think work for teens and I think also can work for adults as well. And there are ones in the teens that I think can be simplified and used with younger kids. So there's really lots of choice, lots of things to discover, and they're so simple. Like when I showed you on the screen the instructions, it's just a few lines, and I think that's what we like as teachers, isn't it? Something, no preparation, very simple to do and integrate. All right,
Claire. We'd like to thank you for such a great presentation. It was very clear, and I'm sure, as many teachers have said in the chat, we are leaving this session with loads of ideas to put into practice and to grow as English teachers. And thank you very much for joining us. And well,
Thank you.
See you soon next year, hopefully. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks.
All right, dear teachers, the next talk will be presented by Priscilla Rifo from Pontificia Universidad Católica de Valparaíso at 2:50. So we still have a few more minutes before her presentation. So we'll be off.